Happy Sunday, semi-retired Bob here. I talk about the carnivore diet, all things related to the carnivore diet, and miscellaneous odds and ends. As you can see, I've got that clown with me today. Rick, the Charger Mopar, is here. And since I can't imagine there are people out there that don't know who you are, Rick, but just take however much time it takes, give us a 5-10 minute intro on who you are and how did you come to be a carnivore?
Well, let me start off with a very quick description. I am the original YouTube carnivore, although, well, I can't say the original because I only started on YouTube when I was interviewed a couple of years ago. But I'm the original carnivore in this area. I started in 1983. I'm sure everybody knows of me now because I am the only person that started the carnivore diet in the quest to get heart disease. You see, when I was a kid, my dad was extremely health conscious. He believed in whole grains and brown rice and brewer's yeast and all the juices, all those fresh fruits and veggies and all the good stuff that tasted like crap, but for some reason was supposed to be good for you. And I was one of those kids that just hated vegetables when I was little. Every time they tried to give me those cooked carrots, I would throw up. Literally, it was terrible. I can't eat, I can eat certain fruits, but an avocado, I could eat maybe 2 bites and then I throw up. It was a torture test for me as a kid. So what happened was when I finished junior high, I was getting ready for high school. I was not a happy kid. I've been picked on a lot in junior high because I was the skinniest and the shortest kid, one of the shortest. There was a couple of, midgets or whatever you call them now that were shorter than me, but I was probably the third shortest in 9th grade. So I decided, you know what? I fell through the roof helping my dad build a carport. I broke my left arm. There wasn't much that I could do. So I thought, I have to make my own food. I'm just going to eat what I like. So I decided I was just going to eat meat and some dairy. I did drink milk at the time and cheese and yogurt and all the other good stuff. But I'll tell you, it was an experience because initially my mom and dad were not pleased. They were quite upset. But mom, she was taking classes for her teaching certificate. My dad was working as an aircraft mechanic, so they weren't home during the day. And I guess at that point it didn't really matter. I was stuck with a broken arm, so I started eating the carnivore diet. And as time went on, it just became a habit of mine. I learned how to pack carnivore foods for lunch in school. Eventually, I learned other techniques like how to cook on my engine when I started driving. I was, 18 years old, and I was in college, and I decided, hey, that's a great way to cook. I also made solar cookers. And the thing was that on the carnivore diet, it was so easy. You never had to worry about complex ingredients. My mother used to love to cook different things. She had a collection of cookbooks, which I have a few left, but I think I gave most of them away because I used to argue with my mom. I said, Mom, what do you need all this for? All you need is a piece of meat and some heat and a little time, and you're good to go. Oh, you're a caveman. And that was the other thing. My mom was always very fussy about manners. She said that you had to eat a certain way, knife and fork and spoon and all that stuff. Me, I didn't need any of that. I had cats. I figured, well, my cat can eat right out of the bowl. Why can't I? So that's what I did. I learned how to eat with my hands. I'd rip the meat apart with my teeth, eat with my hands, and that was it. And as time went on, it was so, I didn't even think about it. You never have to think about what you're going to eat when you're on the carnivore diet. All you do, stock your freezer with meat, put some in the refrigerator, and then, maybe 2 or 3 days you have your meat in the refrigerator, you keep eating it, and then whatever runs out, you go back to the freezer, chuck some more of it in the refrigerator, let it slowly defrost over the next couple days, and that's it. You don't throw anything away. It's really convenient, it's tasty, and it's simple. And then, of course, I did try a plant-based experiment in 1993, the year after Hurricane Andrew. That was a complete failure. After 7 months on the plant-based diet, I got so sick. I felt so bad. I switched back to the carnivore diet, and I've been on the carnivore diet ever since. The only thing is, I never really knew that the carnivore diet had any kind of beneficial effects. I was still expecting that heart attack to come. And I did go to the doctor. I had the yearly checkup and all that. Probably as long as I had a health plan. I guess I was like 25 when that health plan went away, and I got another one when I had a business. The last time I went to the doctor was in 1996. I haven't been there since then. So, as far as I know, I could drop dead right now during this YouTube because, hey, who knows? I could be completely blocked and just waiting for that little last thing to just bam and have that massive heart attack. See, I got something in my throat here. Actually, that's because I was working outside today. I was doing a lot of cleaning, a lot of work with the leaf blower and getting out the stuff to the compost pile and everything. But yeah, so I did the carnivore diet for a long time. And then around 2020, when I was taking care of my mom and we had the virus, I couldn't really go out and do much work or anything. So I spent a lot of time on the internet. And I started to see people like Paul Saladino, Butter Bob Briggs, and a couple of others that they were talking about keto and carnivore diet, which I didn't even know existed. Then we had the kid Joey Schwartz with his carnivore videos. He decided to interview me. And when I told him I'd been carnivore for 39 years, that video kind of went viral. And then after that, several people offered to interview me, including you. And from then on, I've been interviewed by multiple channels, including a couple of the big ones like Sean Baker and Anthony Chafee and Barkay. And obviously, it just has gone from there. And then I started making my own videos around 2023. And I've been trying to go out there and share my story. The main reason that I've done it, which I may have mentioned a couple times, is because when I was taking care of my parents, they were old and they had all these health issues and they were frail and all that. I just got really frustrated because the reason I started the carnivore diet, which I called the heart attack diet, is so that I would remain strong and healthy and then have a massive heart attack just all at once. You know, you're doing something you like and then bam, you hold yourself like this and you go, oh, and then you fall over. And by the time the rescue comes, that's it. They put a towel over you and they call the coroner. And that was my goal. But seeing my parents get old and sick like that, then realizing that the carnivore diet actually helped people heal, that sort of did something to my mind. I said, you know, Rick, you need to go out there. You need to share your story with as many of these people that are willing to talk to you. And you need to make videos on your own. See how many subscribers you get. If you could prevent one person from going through the same fate that your parents did, it would be worth it. And that's really what motivated me, because it sure isn't money, because you don't get any, as you know, you don't get any money from this. But I just wanted to give people the option, because I can't, you know, I can't at this point. I'm too old now to just hide it. I just got to tell everybody. All my friends know that all I eat is meat. And for many years, they said, oh, Rick, you know, one of these days you're going to get a heart attack. You're going to have a health crisis. I said, look, at the time, 54, 55, 56, I'll be 57 in a couple of months. And I just don't feel like I'm falling apart yet. So I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go with this carnivore diet as long as I can until one day you see on the vegan channel that Rick, the 40, 50 or whatever year carnivore, had a heart attack and died. And then the vegans can all dance around their vegetable gardens and they can celebrate. Yes, the vegan diet wins. Look, Michael Greger, look at him. And look at this Rick guy. I mean, oh, wait a minute. I forgot. He's younger than me. Oh, well. But anyway, that's kind of a synopsis of what my story is about. And, you know, if anyone doesn't know it, now you do.
Yep. Something you said in there, you know, that you might drop over right now during this live stream from a heart attack. If that happens, try to fall away from your keyboard so you don't knock yourself offline, so we can get all of it on video. That would be great content.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and jump into the comments here really quick, because we got a few people in here, and then we got some more things to talk about. Choctaw Carver is here. Hello to you. And Josephine is here. Hello, Josephine. We're glad you got up early as well. Sandy is here. Hello to you. And Jilly Rabbit is here from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Glad you made it. Yes, they're talking about Butter Bob. I've seen some of his videos. And Josephine says, absolutely true. She needs to get a belt. And they will all be gone before Rick goes. Yeah, I totally expect that. It's true. Now, I touched on something, and Dr. Baker did a little short on this just today or yesterday. I just saw it. You know, there's this myth out there that says that if you eat more than 30 grams of protein, you're just kind of wasting it because the human body can't process that much meat at a given time. And if you manage to choke down more than that, you're probably going to end up getting diabetes because gluconeogenesis is going to turn it all into sugar for you. Rick, can you settle the argument for us right now? How much do you eat in a day, and do you have diabetes?
Well, I could have diabetes because I haven't been to a doctor since 1996, but I don't have any of the symptoms. I don't get tired like my friend that has diabetes, and my feet are not swollen, and I feel really good. I got lots of energy. And how much meat do I eat? Typically, I'll give you an example. Now, when eggs were cheap, I was eating a dozen to 6 eggs with breakfast, and I had 1 pound of meat. Then for lunch, I'd have 2 pounds of meat, and dinner, another 2 pounds of meat. I generally, my heart attack burger, which is 4 half-pound patties, is 2 pounds of meat before cooking. If I have like heart attack turkey, I'll have half the turkey in one sitting. I can eat a lot of meat. In fact, I may be able to eat more than Dr. Sean Baker because I know he eats a lot. But you got to remember, he's a lot more massive than me. I have the build of a vegan. He has a build of an action superhero from a cartoon. So, but again, if you had any idea how much I could eat, you would be shocked. And the funny thing is, I've had up to 4 pounds of meat in one sitting. Now, if I have 4 pounds of meat, I'm going to be sluggish. I'm going to have to rest. I'm going to have to sit down, take a break for an hour, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. But if I eat 2 pounds of meat, which is my normal amount, I can go right back to work. So, in fact, we were cleaning out an apartment, and I stopped for lunch. I had the meat warming on my engine, and I went out there and I ate it. And within 10, 15 minutes, I was back to work. And the guys I was working with are like, you ate all that steak, and now you're working. I said, yeah, no problem. They look at me like, what kind of crazy, but it doesn't bother me. And as far as I know, I don't have diabetes. I'm not thirsty all the time. I barely drink any water. So I don't think I meet the criteria of being diabetic.
Okay. And Jilly Rabbit has our first question of the day. Can Rick demo cooking some iguana? I think you actually have a video of that on your channel, don't you?
I have several videos. In fact, I had one video like a year or two ago after I did a good iguana hunt. I had probably 8 or 9 iguanas in the kitchen. I had them on top of the sink. I was carving them up. I've had videos of boiled iguana, heart attack iguana, which is deep fried in lard or beef tallow. I have made videos. So, yeah, I can do it again. All you got to do is wait till I catch the next iguana. I haven't had one since I picked up the roadkill a couple of weeks ago, but I'll find some. It's just that I've basically exhausted the supply of iguanas from my neighborhood. The only iguanas we have now are maybe this big or smaller, and I see them when I'm riding my bike. So I'm going to have to wait probably a year or more before they grow up to be table-sized because it's not even worth it. Little iguana like this, little tiny tail, little legs, that's not even enough meat. You want to get them at least 3 feet long. 4 feet is the best. That's when you get the most flavorful, delicious iguana meat.
Yep. And Sandy's saying Russ knows they went to the all-you-can-eat buffet. I remember that. That was a Brazilian barbecue, wasn't it?
Rodizio, yeah, Rodizio Brazilian Steakhouse is down the street from here. Russ is the only one from YouTube in 17 years that has had the courage to come and meet me. So that he has that unique, I would guess, not really award, but it's sort of like a unique characteristic because all the other popular carnivores, they deliberately, I don't know if they deliberately do, but they don't come down to Miami. They only go down maybe as far as Central Florida. But once they know where Rick is, they're like, no. We're keeping away from that guy because he's crazy. And then not only has Russ come to visit me, but he's also going to make sure that I make it up to the get together they have up in the Tampa area when they have that Hack Your Health thing. So we'll see how many of the carnivores will recognize me. I don't think it's going to be that hard because I'm probably the tallest one that'll be there. And I'm unique. Let's put it that way.
Yes, yes, you are. And, when Mom lived in Ruskin, which is just south of Tampa, it was 27 and a half hours from here to there. So, I would have to drive. I think it's about another 3.5 hours down to Miami from there. So, I mean, we're looking at right at 30 hours of driving one way. So, unfortunately, I'm probably not just going to drop over to say hi. But we do have a question from Tall Cedars. Hello, Tall Cedars. I'm glad you made it today. Hi, all. Besides making stew with tough beef, is there any other way to cook it faster on the stovetop? I'll let you take that first, Rick, and then I'll chime in with some ideas.
Well, let me tell you a little something. When you say tough beef, you do not want to cook it fast, because if you cook tough beef fast, the only thing you're going to make is shoe leather. It's going to be the most unpleasant, most disturbing meal you've ever had. Now, if you need to cook your meat faster, you're going to have to break it down another way. I don't know how strict of a carnivore you are, but if you're not that strict, what I do, I go out in my yard, get a bunch of sour oranges or get any other kind of acidic fruit and squeeze it out, and then soak your meat in that overnight or maybe for a whole day in the refrigerator. So you want to make a marinade. Citrus works best. Lemons, limes, sour oranges, whatever. And let the meat sit in there, and that'll help break it down. Then you can use a Dutch oven, which is basically a cast iron pot. And then you put your meat in there. You'll want to put a grate on top of it, like one of those mesh. I have them in the kitchen. They're like, some people, I think they call it a trivet or something like that. It's like a round sort of a grill, and you put it in there, put the meat on top of it, crank that heat all the way up, and let it preheat until it's like maybe 300 to 400 degrees. Take the lid off, drop the meat on there, put the top on it, and let it cook for about 15, maybe 20 minutes, and it'll be pretty good. But again, believe me, if the meat is tough, don't rush it. You'll regret it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I do, I don't know if it actually makes it any better as far as toughness, but it makes it taste a lot better. I take my cast iron skillet, and this is the one time I don't worry about wasting grease. I will traditionally put 2 or 3 sticks of butter in my cast iron skillet. Let that get nice and hot, just to the point where the butter is starting to turn brown. And while that's heating up, I cut that tough meat into cubes, little bite-sized cubes, and just dump it in there and basically deep fry the meat in butter. And like I said, I don't know if it makes it any less tough, but it certainly makes it taste great, because there's nothing better than butter-soaked beef, in my opinion. And Don has arrived. Hello, Don. I'm glad you are here. I'm glad everybody's here. It's a wonderful Sunday evening. So if you have any questions or comments or topics you would like us to talk about, be sure and put those over there in the comments so that we have things to talk about as we progress through this live stream. In the meantime, while we wait for some more comments to come in, I heard you had a successful egg hunt, Rick. Can you tell us about that?
Well, as you know, since my truck's been broken, which has been about 1.5 years, I have done a lot more bike riding because my van has not such a great transmission. But what happened, a lot of times I ride, there's a canal path. There's like a bike path. There's one that goes down the main street, and then there's one that runs along the canal. And years ago, they used to spray Roundup and glyphosate and all that other crap along the canal. So it eroded away, has a bunch of holes that have developed. Well, they stopped doing it. I've been complaining about it for years. And I guess enough people complain. They stopped spraying it with herbicide. Now they use a tractor to mow it with a boom mower. So all the plants have gotten kind of even, but there's hidden pockets by the canal. And that's the perfect nesting place for ducks. So the ducks, they'll climb up on the canal bank. They'll go into these little holes and openings. And by the way, iguanas like to hide out there too sometimes. So I'm looking for a duck or iguana. Well, I went over there. I saw some duck feathers. I figured, oh, there must be a nest nearby. And sure enough, when I looked in there, I looked down there. I used a stick to make sure there's no snakes in the nest, and I saw duck eggs. So I had my bag with me, and I got some Spanish moss that was on the ground, and I put the Spanish moss in the bag. I put the eggs in there. It looks like those people, you know how they have that Easter basket thing with the eggs in it and the little, grass. So it looks like that. So I put about 20 duck eggs in there, and I brought that home. I put them in the egg cartons. I haven't had eggs for more than a month, but now I had 2 duck eggs. I have to ration the eggs because I don't have that many. So I'll have 2 duck eggs along with the pound of meat for breakfast. And boy, that was nice because it's been a long time since I had eggs. Didn't feel any worse, but after having those duck eggs this morning, I had a burst of energy. So I really got outside and started doing stuff. Had to move my engine. I was working on my friend's golf cart. I rewired that. And then I had some trash I had to take out. So it really motivated me to get stuff done. But yeah, I was happy. So that was a nice find. And I don't have to go to the store and buy the so-called free-range eggs. I know those eggs are free range because I think I saw the mama that laid the eggs. She probably looked at me angry again. I mean, a couple of times I've had them attack me, but it's pretty rare. Usually if they see you going for the eggs, they'll leave. Ducks generally don't try to fight you off. But I did have one time when I was taking her eggs, and she came up and started flying at me and attacking me. I had to grab her out of the air and hold her down while I was putting the eggs away, and then I let her go. Then she tried to stamp her feet. They do like a, I don't know what you call it, with their feet like that, almost like a Spanish dance or something. I've never been able to get it on video, but it is quite funny. But most of the time, they're not that aggressive. They'll just leave and then they'll lay more eggs somewhere else or in the same place. So I'll keep an eye on that location every week and see if there's another egg. Now, I won't grab the eggs as soon as she lays them because if she lays 1 or 2 eggs and they disappear, she'll find another spot. So I'll let her lay about maybe 7 or 8 eggs or maybe 10 eggs, and then I'll grab some of the eggs. I don't grab them all. I'll grab 4 eggs maybe at a time. She won't notice, and she'll keep laying eggs until she feels like her nest is full, and then I get a nice supply. I can get at least 1 egg a day from each duck when they're in the laying mood. Now, once she's basically out of eggs, she'll sit on what she's got left, become broody, and then that's it. But there's plenty of other pockets. There's a place over there. This one's under the bridge. There's another place down there. I know all their nesting spots because, believe me, I've been there many times. And also, I know where the chickens are, but I haven't seen too much activity there. So I don't know if people have gotten really poor and they had to eat the chickens, but I don't see as many as there used to be. But they all hang out around the bank, around the Presidente supermarket, and there's a Chinese restaurant. So maybe the Chinese restaurant grabbed the chickens. I don't know, because they all seem to disappear pretty quickly. I hope they're not serving that stuff in the restaurant, but you never know around here.
Yeah. And Tall Cedar said that both methods sound yummy, and I will try them. Yes, they are very good. And someone down here, where was it? There it is. Julia Rabbit says, I like to throw tough beef in the crock pot with some butter and go to bed. Then when I get up, dinner is ready. Yes, all of the above methods are good. If you don't have a crock pot or some kind of a slow cooking method, I recommend getting one of those. That's like one of the few kitchen gadgets I own is a crock pot. But I understand if you're like me, you don't plan ahead. Because, if I could plan ahead and throw a roast in the crock pot every night for the next day's food, that would be ideal. But one, I eat mostly ground beef. And number 2, when I decide to have a roast, I have decided just a couple hours earlier. I pull a roast out of the freezer. I dunk it in the sink full of hot water for a couple hours, and then I cook it up. I'm not a very patient person when it comes to waiting for my food. And then Paul is here. Yeah, Paul, I understand the notifications were off. StreamYard does something goofy once in a while, especially since I'm on the non-paid version now. And it was saying a later start time. That may be why there's only 20 people here now, but people will realize we're live if everybody that's in here will hit that thumbs up, and that might help get some more people in. See, we're up to 21 now. Somebody must have hit the thumbs up. But it's one of those things that happens when you don't have the paid version of software anymore. And I apologize for it. If I had noticed it earlier, I would have changed it, but I didn't notice it till, well, I didn't even notice it at all, but Rick popped in the stream about 5 till and said, hey, why does it say we're not starting for an hour yet? And I'm like, oh, gee, I didn't even notice. I just hatched some chicken eggs in the incubator. Going to start duck eggs next week or so. That sounds good. Then once you get the chickens and the ducks hatched, they can grow up and start giving you even more eggs and some meat for the table.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to ask you something else here, Rick, while we're here, because I've heard you. I believe it was on your live stream yesterday morning when somebody was asking about if you've ever had snake, and you said you have had rattlesnake. So, since I am moving to rattlesnake country here very soon, perhaps you could talk us through the process of actually cooking a rattlesnake without killing yourself on it.
Well, the thing about rattlesnakes, or any venomous snake, the venomous part is in the head. And generally the pit vipers, they have the part that sticks out. That's where the poison glands are. So the safest thing to do, I mean, first of all, it depends on how you want to kill it. I mean, if you probably don't want to take a chance with a machete because they may strike you. I've actually used a shovel to kill rattlesnakes before, but it works even better. If you're going to use a machete, you want to throw it at them. So that way, but you got to be a good thrower so you can, get them in the head. The thing about a snake is if you don't get the head and you shoot them somewhere else, they're going to move around quite a bit and they can still bite. And I don't know, I haven't seen it, but even after the snake is technically dead, they do have a reflex action. So you want to stay away from that head. So first of all, you kill the rattlesnake, and then you need to separate the head from the rest of the snake as soon as possible. So you can use a stick or shovel or whatever to move the snake into position. Then you can use a shovel to take the head off. Again, I wouldn't use a machete because if that thing comes up, those fangs, they can get you, and then you got a major problem. So once you've done that, now the next thing you want to do is you want to get your snake ready. You need to cut it open. And the ribs around the snake go around the base. They can expand when they eat. So you want to cut the bottom of the snake. I don't know if you want to save the snake skin to make a belt or to cover your boots with, but if you do, then make sure you cut it down the belly. Because usually the outside of the skin is going to be more, I don't know how you'd put it. It just has more character to it. But anyway, if you're just going to eat it, it doesn't matter. So remove the head, and then you'll want to cut it open and get a hose or whatever and wash out the digestive system. You want to pull that out, wash it out, get the meat nice and clean. You can cut the tail off because you don't want that, and you just pull the whole thing out. Some people like to save the rattles. Again, that's up to you. I guess that could make a nice little extra. But once you've got the snake cut open, and again, normally I'll use like metal shears, like the big scissors, and just cut it open with that. Then what you want to do is you can skin it manually with a fillet type knife, or if you're not really concerned about the skin, you can just boil it. So you take the whole rattlesnake and cut it in pieces, or just put the whole thing into a pot of boiling water. And once it starts to boil, the skin will separate from the meat. Then you can peel it off, just like on an iguana, the same thing you've seen me do with the with iguanas. And then once you've removed the skin, now you can cook it any way you want. You can continue to boil it. You can make a stew out of it, or you could get it ready for frying. I don't generally recommend frying the rattlesnake meat without boiling it because reptile meat doesn't have a lot of fat and it will tend to get really hard. It's going to be not like leather, but it might be like cardboard. It will not be a pleasant experience. So what I recommend, boil it up a little bit. And then if you want to fry it, you can get your pork rinds and eggs, make your batter, and then dip the snake meat in it. And then you can fry it up in some beef tallow or lard. It's actually quite good. But even if you boil it, it's actually very nice. I mean, I like reptile meat. I've eaten a lot of boiled iguanas, snakes. Um, I haven't had a python yet. I've heard people tell me they're tough, but I'm sure it's just a matter of the way you cook it. One person I know tried to barbecue it or grill it. Big mistake. If you're going to cook rattlesnake, don't grill it. I guess technically, if you marinate it first, you might be able to grill it, but I wouldn't recommend it. Everybody I know has tried to grill rattlesnake has ended up with a terrible experience. But yeah, boiling it or frying it is delicious. It tastes rattlesnake actually does taste like chicken. Iguana is more like seafood combined with chicken, but rattlesnake does taste like chicken, and I'm not sure why that is, but the few times I've had it, that's what I remember about it.
Yeah, well, I have a long handled shovel, and I also have one of those long handled snake grabber things that's like 6 feet long. So if I can, once I spot the thing, I'm not anticipating a lot of snakes on my property because what attracts the snakes? Well, it would be mice. And what attracts mice? Well, people that drop grain type food all over the ground. That's what attracts mice. Frozen meat doesn't really attract mice, so I don't expect to find a lot of snakes, but I'm sure it's the Texas desert. I'm sure I'm going to see a few rattlesnakes, but between the long-handled grabber and the long-handled shovel, I'll be able to get them pinned down and take the head off that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I do thank you for all of that advice because I'm going to give it. I'm certainly not going to waste that meat. I'm not going to just toss the rattlesnake out into the desert and let it decompose. If a rattlesnake ends up on my property and I manage to kill it, I'm going to eat that thing.
You won't regret it.
Mm-hmm. See here, warm beef drenched in butter for breakfast. For some reason, I've never done that. Sounds great. Yes, indeed. And we have a question from Cordelia. Bob, as you've progressed in your carnivore journey, are you finding you like eating the meat more rare? Not really. Primarily I eat ground beef. When I do a roast, I'm not very good at doing roasts, so I tend to just stick them on a piece of parchment paper in the oven and let them bake for 3 or 4 hours. So I won't say they get extra well done, but they get pretty well done all the way through. If I'm right there on top of it, I don't mind if they come out medium rare in the middle, and I don't really notice. The problem with me is I don't really notice that big of a difference between medium rare and basically brown all the way through from being baked in the oven. Now, my favorite way to do a roast, if I've got the time, is I cut it into strips. And again, put butter in the cast iron skillet and kind of deep fry the strips of roast 2 or 3 at a time. And those I'll just basically get them brown on one side, flip them over, get them brown on the other. And those end up being fairly rare. But I don't really have a preference, and I certainly wouldn't say that I'm moving more towards rare meat. I've always been, well, since I got out of the house on my own, because I grew up in a household that mom cooked everything very well done. So all of the beef I had as a kid, all of the steaks and roasts and stuff were basically shoe leather. But then when I got into college, some friends of mine said, here, why don't you just try a bite of this. And it wasn't really that even rare. It was just a medium steak. And that was a game changer for me. So I guess that's the story of how I like that stuff. I hope that answers your question. And Bert has arrived. Hello, Bert. Greetings from the future. It's Monday here, just after midnight. Yes. Happy Monday to you, Bert. I still have some Sunday left. And Harley says, yes, there's not much fat on a rattlesnake, which is okay. Boil it up, serve it with some butter, just like I do with chicken. Because when I do like, there's enough fat on, like when I get the bone-in skin on chicken thighs because they're on sale. But I'm not so proud that if they've got boneless, skinless chicken breasts on sale, which have basically no fat at all on them, but if those are on sale for less than $1 a pound, you better believe I throw some of those into my freezer. And those just have to be, I heat them up in the oven and then drown them in butter to get my fat, because that's just what I do. And we all heard your phone ringing there, Rick. Did you have somebody calling?
Yeah, people call every now and then. I guess it's just part of every time I go live. I forget to disconnect the ringer and it rings. But I've never seen another live stream that had a phone like that.
Yep. And then I have upped my salt intake and was curious if any salt is better than the others. I've been using red salt due to muscle spasm. Thanks. I personally use Redmond's real salt because it's sourced here in the United States. I'm not sure where you're from, but any locally sourced salt is fine. The one thing I would say, because Himalayan pink salt is very good salt, the problem is there's some unscrupulous sellers out there. So if you go onto Amazon and you see, oh, well, this pink Himalayan salt is $5 for this little bottle of it. I can't afford that, but oh, look, here's another. I get a whole great big 2-pound tub of pink Himalayan salt for that same $5. I'll order that one. Believe it or not, people will actually take regular old salt and put some pink dye in it and sell it as pink Himalayan salt. So you need to be a little careful. If the deal seems like it's too good to be true, it probably is. Just like I talked about in a video recently, and I know Rick has talked about this from time to time as well, with the salt, just like with olive oil. If it's pure olive oil, I see no problem using that. However, so many companies dilute it with canola oil or soy oil or some other kind of so-called healthy oil that you really have to be careful. So what are your thoughts on the salt, Rick?
I generally distill my own salt. I use, well, most of the time, I use salty groundwater from down in the Keys. I just pump that out and then put it into stainless steel trays, put it outside, let the water evaporate. It takes about a week or so, and then I'll take those pieces of salt and run them through a blender. I'll probably do 10, 20 pounds all, in the process, and then that'll last me years. I think it's been 7 or 8 or maybe 9 years since the last time that I processed salt, and I still have it. So, and every now and then it basically sticks together. So I have a little grinder that you can kind of grind it out, almost like a pepper grinder. So I just put it in there and just twist it a little bit. But I don't use much salt anyway. I never salt beef or steaks. The only thing I ever salt maybe is heart attack chicken and occasionally maybe pork and iguana. But I never salt beef. I generally don't salt any meat. I mean, the chicken maybe half the time. It depends. But I do distill my own salt.
Yeah, and see, that's another one of the differences of having been carnivore for 40 plus years. Basically, your body has been adapted to carnivore since you were 15 years old. Those of us who have been on the standard American diet and then made the switch, I think we need a little bit more salt because our body isn't as well honed to recycling the electrolytes in our body as some people might, like you. So, like, where you hardly ever use any salt, I think I've gone through in the almost 3 years, I think I've gone through, it's somewhere between 15 and 20 pounds of salt in 3 years.
Wow.
And my blood pressure is just fine.
Well, salt doesn't cause your blood pressure to rise. I tested
Right.
that out years ago because my blood pressure was considered too low, being 90/60. So I started going crazy with the salt, and it stayed exactly the same. No change.
Yes. So I hope that answers your question, John. Any good salt is fine. Whatever you do, don't use the Umbrella Girl salt or anything like that. It's okay to buy table salt in the store as long as you pick the package up, turn it over, and find one that does not have sugar as the second ingredient. But you'll find that most of the cheap salts that you buy in the store, the table salt that you get, a great big tube of it for like $1 to $1.50 in the store, that's going to have sugar in it as well. Target Prime Rib is here. Hello, Bob and Rick. Hello to you too. I am glad you're here.
Hello, Thomas.
And Harley says Jacobson Salt Company is what I use. Pure sea salt from the pristine waters of Netarts Bay on the Oregon coast. They have a website where you can order. Sounds good. And I know there's quite a few others. I don't know if that's the same salt that Dr. Baker uses, but if you watch other people, I mean, you see, like Dr. Baker has that big tub of salt that he pulls out and basically takes 5 fingers worth of salt and sprinkles it over his meat. Basically, any good salt is fine as long as it's not table salt. But I'll have to take a look at that Jacobson Salt Company just to see what I can see, because I'm always interested in trying new things, as much salt as I use.
Yeah.
And we are currently out of questions and comments. So you've been talking about your new engine for your truck for a while, Rick. How is that going?
Well, I'm still trying to get the proper flywheel and bolts, but I did get the adapter piece. I was at my friend's junk lot, and I was able to get my hands on it. I think it was here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Right here. This is the piece that goes between the crankshaft and the flywheel or the flex plate. Now, this is an automatic transmission, so it's going to have a flex plate with a welded ring gear for the starter. Now, I actually should have that flex plate because I took one of these engines apart a long time ago. So I've been trying to get to it in my garage. But my garage is extremely dangerous. There is a lot of stuff in there. It's a one-car garage, and it's a small one. And there is a lot. I mean, there's everything in there from pin setters, from a bowling alley to engines, to hoods, fenders, doors, everything from my chargers. There's household stuff. It's packed. And to get in there requires heavy equipment. I have to use a bobcat to move some of the boxes. So I've been moving the truck and moving it with a bobcat and so on. And every time I try to get to it, I have work I have to do. There's always a distraction. But I did work on it today. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before I will find that part, because all I need to do, put that on the engine, put a starter on there and spin it, see what the compression is like. If the compression is good, then I'm just going to do, gaskets, maybe change a water pump. I'm going to do the oil cooler, do basic maintenance. Now, my engine stand is too weak to hold that heavy diesel, so I'm going to have to reinforce it, or I might just build a whole new engine stand out of some scrap metal I got laying around. So I'll probably get the welder out there. Is somebody coming by here? Somebody's walking their dog. Yeah, I'll get the welder and get it where I can put it on the engine stand. That way I'll be able to turn the engine over. I'll do the oil pan gasket. I'll probably do the crankshaft seal, get everything ready to go. And then when the engine's fresh and ready, I'll swap it out. It'll take me maybe a day or two, get that in my truck, and it'll be running again. It'll be running better than ever. I won't be smoking out the neighborhood and clunking down the road like I was before. It should be running smooth. It's like my van. It runs really well, but the transmission is messed up. So when I go for a ride in the van, I never know if I'm going to have to push it part of the way. The last time I drove my van, which was on Friday, I had to push it a quarter mile down the street to get it back to the house. And then I couldn't push it up the driveway because it's so big and heavy, and it sloped upward. So I had to use Bob to lift it up, the Bobcat, not this Bob over here, the Bob that I have in the side yard. So I got the van in there. And then, of course, I started the van today. It worked fine. Once that transmission gets hot, it doesn't work. But this was really important because you can't buy this. It hasn't been made in probably 20 or 30 years. So I was glad to get my hands on this. I just need to find those other parts, and I'll be moving along.
Excellent. Absolutely excellent. We look forward to those videos because those would be those are going to be interesting. I mean, because I was just, as you were talking, I was sitting here thinking, I'm certainly not coming down to Miami this year. But if you don't get moved, perhaps instead of coming back to Omaha straight away next winter, I may load up my trailer, turn it back into a little camper, and drive down to Miami, not just to see you, but to do things like get a lesson on how to drive the Bobcat and get a lesson to learn how to weld. Because I think when I go to actually, if I decide I want to put windows in my shipping container, there's going to be welding involved in that. And I don't have clue one how to weld. And YouTube videos are nice, but being able to spend a week down there in my trailer in your driveway and you get the welder out and show me how to actually do some of this stuff might not be a bad way to go. And it looks like we have another question popped in. When you move to Texas, are you going to have some livestock? Eventually, yes. Not right off the bat, because my general plan is to come back to Omaha the first 2 or 3 summers I'm down there. And once you have animals on a piece of property, you're pretty much tied to that piece of property unless you get somebody that is willing to animal sit for you that can come out to where you're at and take care of your chickens and whatever for you. And the reason I'm on this plan of 3 to 5 years is I've worked at a miniature golf course for a very long time. The owner, Dave, is going to sell it sometime in the next 5 years. Once miniature golf is gone, because the gal I take dance from is retiring at the end of this year and turning the studio over to her daughter. So my dance classes will be done in about another month and a half. And then after the miniature golf closes, there won't be a whole lot left to tie me here to Omaha. So at that point, I'm going to, when I move down there full time, which is why I have the big push on to get as much done as I can in the next 2 or 3 winters, so that it's basically livable year round. And then I'm going to move down there. And once I'm there year round, I'm going to probably get a couple of cats and a couple of dogs and then some chickens. And I'm thinking probably goats rather than sheep, because goats are easier to take care of in the desert. I'm probably going to, if I don't get a full pond dug yet, I'm probably going to get a couple of kids' swimming pools and try to turn those into little duck ponds to have some ducks to go with my chickens. But yes, eventually, because I have 10 acres, I'm eventually going to have pretty much anything you can put on 10 acres except for a cow, because cows take a lot of water. And until I get everything built the way I want it to be built, I'm not going to have a ton of extra water. You know, I am planning on roughly a 24 by 32 rain roof over top of my shipping container. And that should give me basically 1,500 gallons of water storage for every inch of rain I get. So at 17 to 18 inches of rain average per year where I'm at, that's a lot of water storage. And once I have that much in storage tanks, I can consider maybe getting a cow. But I would much rather spend all that money on taking care of, 15 chickens that are going to give me eggs, plus another 15 meat chickens, plus maybe a pig or two and a goat or two, the kind of stuff that's going to basically be meat on the hoof, that when it's time to butcher and fill my freezer up, it's all right there. So that's the long-term plan. So I am eventually going to have some livestock, but not right away. Hopefully that answers your question. And it looks like we are out of questions and comments again. So we've got about 10 minutes left here, Rick. So why don't you go ahead and take a few more minutes and tell people what are you doing with your channel? For those that don't know you, what kind of videos do you make? Just the general where we can find you kind of stuff.
Well, I started on YouTube in 2007, so I've been around for a while. I started off making not carnivore videos. I actually made videos debunking scams, mostly the energy scams they had back in 2007 and 2008, like how to run your car on water, how to make a generator that runs itself, all this other crap that just doesn't make any sense. But now I do a little of everything. If I see something that I'm doing, maybe I'm fixing something, fixing my car or somebody else's car, doing some work. I do a lot of home repairs and improvements and stuff like that for other people. So I put up little short videos. It could be anything from electrical to plumbing to mechanic. I haven't done any welding videos yet because it's kind of hard to manipulate a camera or phone when you're trying to work. But I just basically I have a weekly live that I do on Saturday morning, and the reason I do that is because that's usually my time off. And sometimes they can go pretty long. I think the shortest one I ever had was like 3 hours, and then some of them have been 4 or 5 hours. I have a tendency, and then I'll cover a little of everything. I'll talk a little about the carnivore diet. I'll talk a little bit about Miami. I'll talk about ducks. I'll talk about gardening. I'll talk about anything. And really what it comes down to is whoever enters the chat, they'll go ahead and they'll ask me a question or they'll make a comment, and then I'll work from there. I also have done some like subject videos. I haven't done one in a while where I would talk about a different subject. I was talking about my friend that tried the carnivore diet. I talked about the economy. I talked about, how to cook. I had a few cooking videos, how to cook on your engine, how to cook duck, how to cook iguana, that kind of stuff. And I think one time I did a parody video of making juices that like I was pretending when I was a vegan. I got a lot of laughs out of that. In fact, when I watched it myself, you can see Bob's.
That was great. That was great.
I have to do another one of those, but I think next time I'll try to dress like a vegan. So that way, because I'm so skinny, I could pass for a vegan. Maybe that would work. I need one of them long-haired wigs, shaggy looking, because all the vegans, they always have like, some kind of half a beard, long hair, ratty looking. Some of them look like they climbed out of a wood chipper. I'll find some other video, maybe a parody video. I've done some driving videos. It's just it's nothing exciting. It's not one of those channels where you're going to find the groundbreaking entertainment or documentary or whatever. But it's just a little bit of my life and the way that I see things. And hopefully one day some of my friends will want to get into the videos, but most of the people I know are camera shy. So if I try to take a video of something, they all run in different directions. And that could also be that some of the jobs I work with people that are not exactly legal in the country, and I guess they don't want to be on video because they don't want to be the target for the next deportation. So that might be another part of it. But, it's nothing that you're not going to find, like, for example, let me think. I'm trying to think of a popular channel. You have a lot of these popular YouTubers. They have giveaways. They have, the clickbait. Oh, I did this and I did that and this happened. People, I guess, like that. Watching me, they probably get bored. They go, oh, this crazy guy, he's over there. He's picked some piece of junk out of the trash pile that he's trying to get working. He's there fixing his house. He's there, doing something that doesn't make sense. They look at my videos. Is this recent or is this like 30 years ago? No, they're all recent. Sometimes I think they look at the background and think, oh, this is pretty old. But no, it's new. But it's just, I guess you could call it a channel about nothing in particular.
Fantastic. If you guys are watching this right now and you haven't actually checked out his channel, you got to at least go watch his juicing video because unfortunately, I think for him to make another one of those, he has to buy a new juicer because I think he blew the old one up trying to put that stuff through it.
Actually, it still works. I disassembled it. I fixed it. It's still in there. That was one of those champion juicers. My dad used to use those crazy things. And I mean, it's well made, I got to tell you. But it was funny. I just took stuff from the yard and jammed it in there and tried to make an impromptu juice video because I got so sick and tired of these vegans with their stupid juice fasts and all this other nonsense. I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. It's like your friend Dave, he used to do his, what was it? I forget what he called the vegan character.
Bellshine.
Bellshine. There you go. With that wig. That was instead of Mick the vegan, I said Rick the vegan. And then that way it just, yeah, but I could do another one of those. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is get the wood chipper. When I get that working, maybe I'll make a juicing video and then I'll throw some water in there. And then as the juice comes out, oh, look, we're making some fresh juice right from this wood chipper. Because, I mean, my dad used to make juice for years. They put everything in there from vegetables to fruits. It was it was bad.
Uh-huh. And of course, Sandy says she loves watching Rick.
Excellent.
And Target Prime Red said his channel is good, Bob. He had a great guest on it one time, some guy named Thomas.
Yep.
I don't know who that was. Was that him, Target Prime Red?
My channel, because I have a call-in line. At any time they can call in. It's just like an old radio show in the 70s or 80s. You can call in and talk to me. You can remain anonymous. So, yeah, because usually when you do like StreamYard or whatever, you're going to have a username or at least a name that goes with it. But you just call in and you can talk to me. I mean, you can identify yourself or you could just be one of the mysterious duck flock.
That sounds great. Yeah, I saw your phone number listed on the live stream on Saturday. The problem is that Saturday mornings when you go live, I'm barely awake. I watch you on my phone while I'm standing outside getting some sun in my eyes first thing and doing some grounding. And I'm not very functional. Maybe one of these Saturday mornings I'll be awake enough to actually call in and say, hey, but
yeah, we got one call yesterday, and then a week ago when Thomas was on there, he was on the phone for hours. So that was one of those long calls. So that's pretty good. But yeah, you'll see some. I'm sure that as time goes on, there'll be more and more interesting people calling in.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. But we are pushing up against the top of the hour. I unfortunately don't like to go a whole lot over that, so I'm going to thank Rick for being here with us today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you're watching this after the fact and you enjoyed me having a guest on like Rick, let us know down in the comments, because I'm sure I can get Rick back pretty much any time he has a free day. And if you'd like to see me get other guests in on the live stream, let me know about that. But for now, I want to say thanks to everyone for being here. These really are my favorite times of the week. Rick obviously had to go deal with something, but there he is back again. Any last words before I sign us off here, Rick?
No, like Bob said, check out my channel, check out Bob's channel. Don't just stay on the popular, the real, high subscriber channels. Move around, and you might discover something that you enjoy. So that's why we're here.
Yep. And as I always say, don't forget, get out there, be 1% better, folks. Today, tomorrow, and every day. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you in the next one.